Hello, everybody. My name is Niels Pflaeging. I am the founder of the Beta Codex Network and one of the founders of Red 42, the consulting company that runs this Substack. And I would like to talk to you today about a topic that I have tried to explore and research again and further over the last few weeks. A couple of weeks ago, we published this research paper, Slave to the Rhythm, about time oriented work systems in practice. You might have read the paper, you might not have read it, you might not have heard about it, but as this research paper explores different concepts, the big three concepts, as I call them, of time orientation in organizations, and these are lean RFS, quick response manufacturing, and the Weichselbaum system. Of course, another noteworthy concept of time orientation is the Toyota production system, pioneered by Taiichi Ono. All these, the big three and Toyota, are mentioned and explored in the white paper. So after publishing this paper, I thought, okay, I should explore the topic of time a little bit further. Beyond the first paper, I thought of maybe writing another paper about time and organizing, and I found a few books that I would like to mention and to you and maybe recommend to you. So I have in this video I have four books that I want to recommend to you that deal with time orientation and work or time and organizing. Let's put it like this. The first book I would like to manage. The first two books are published by Routledge, which is a publisher. I think it's British originally. They're selling overpriced scientific research books. The first book I would like to recommend is Time and Organizational Research. This is only for those who are not faint of heart. Really, this is science in its purest, most time-consuming form, so to speak. So this book unites 16 research papers. Some of them very interesting, I think, but you will find, if you're interested really in this cross section of time and organizing, you will only find maybe 3 or 4 of these texts, of these 16 texts, interesting. So this is for those who want to explore it all, who want to go deep. Time in Organizational Research by Rowe, Waller, and Clegg, who are the editors of this volume. There's another volume the book that I just finished reading a couple of minutes ago. It's also by Routledge. It's a little slimmer, and somebody recommended it to me. I'm not sure who it was. Somebody recommended it to me on LinkedIn, and I had overlooked it. It's called Time, Work, and Organization. Time, Work, and Organization, also published at Routledge. It's published by Blyton, Hassard, Hill, and Starkey. These are the editors. And this book I think it's pretty nice, pretty useful. It has only 7 chapters, let's say an introduction, a conclusion, and 5 longer articles, which I think are almost all pretty interesting. So if you are really interested in the concept of time more philosophically and how it connects to people and work and organizing work, then this is read worthy. This is a pretty decent thing. You will find lots of sources, references to concepts, a lot of mention of interesting concepts. But what bugs me about both these volumes, Time and Organizational Research and Time, Work, and Organization, what bugs me about both these volumes is that they do not cover the obvious. They do none. They hardly ever refer to Toyota. There are some mentions. Toyota, for example, isn't mentioned here. Just in Time is mentioned, and very sparsely as the Japanese way or something like that. So it's kind of surprising that researchers in business studies, give a shit about practice. They hardly care. They do not look into what's most obviously time related in terms of work concepts, which would have been the most obvious, thing that you could find was the Toyota production system. But yeah, no, hardly to be found in both books. So interestingly, there's a huge gap. And for this, I would like to recommend again a book that I recommended in on the Beta Codex Network Substack a while ago. It's called The Birth of Lean. Fabulous, well, a good book about the roots of lean and what the philosophy of lean and the Toyota production system is about. So this is basically a compilation of texts by Japanese authors, Toyota experts, people from Toyota, and so on. There is a chapter by Taiichi Ono in this book, for example. But these are speeches, some of them are speeches. So you have to interpret this book, but I think it's a worthwhile read. It's really, really interesting, very, very. Let's say get the feeling reading this book that you learn something about the true origins of the Toyota production system. So highly recommended, one of the best lean books there is in the market. This is called The Birth of Lean, Conversations with Taiichi Ono, Eiji Toyoda, and other figures who shaped Toyota management. Edited by Koichi Shimokawa and Takahiro Fujimoto. Very worthwhile book. However, there is something missing in all these books. Quite honestly, something is missing. I think none of the people involved with these three books, and nobody at Toyota actually thought these concepts through until the end. I think there is a lack of depth in the thinking about time and work that you might feel when reading these three. I've found it, because I think what's missing is that if you create an organization that's truly time oriented, truly structured by times, as one of the authors, one of the books explains, time, it doesn't really exist. Times exist because we all perceive time differently, depending on our work roles, our jobs, our contexts. We perceive time differently, relatively, so to speak. And and one thing is missing philosophically, the depth I'm missing in all these books is that ultimately, if you turn to time orientation, you will find that capacity must swing. Capacity cannot be perceived as inflexible. I had a conversation the other day with one of our clients, and he said, "Oh, our capacity is limited." And I kind of halted him and said, "If you want to go to time-oriented software development, if you want to make that move, not just lazy Scrum, but real time orientation in software development, then you have to forget. Then you have to disbelieve in the concept of limited capacity or lacking capacity or restricted capacity. You must first convince yourself that capacity is floating anyways, and that it can float, and there is no lack of capacity. There is just a restriction to how many things you can do in one phase or time box, one partition of time. Of course, this is very much in lean and agile thinking. This idea is represented, but the ultimate point is, if you do not organize for time, as this volume, by the way, pretty neatly describes, if you do not structure work through times and let's say different sections and events and activities, if you do not structure people's experience of time in that way, you likely end up having no structure and no order at all. So the ultimate order in work comes from time orientation. And nobody in the world, I think, has grasped these concepts as clearly as Ernst Weichselbaum. Here's the thing: if you speak if you speak German, you are clearly at an advantage, because this book only exists in German. Yeah. If you have wit and technical finesse, you can get the ebook of this book by Ernst Weichselbaum. It's called In jedem Unternehmen steckt ein besseres. Ernst Weichselbaum is the name of the author from Austria. This book doesn't exist in English yet. If you speak German, read it, because this is the ultimate thinking about time and organizing. Now, for those of you who do not fancy, auto translating books from German to English, I still recommend the research paper we published last month. Slave to the Rhythm, Time Oriented Work Systems in Practice, the newest Beta Codex white paper. It unites the best ideas and great quotes by Hans Weichselbaum, and many of the concepts of this book, or a bunch of concepts from the book, are in the research paper. And as I mentioned, also content from Taiichi Ono and Toyota, and from lean RFS thinking and quick response manufacturing thinking. So you will find a great amount of ideas in that paper. I still recommend these four books that I mentioned, including The Birth of Lean and the book by Ernst Weichselbaum in German, and the Beta Codex Network research paper, Slave to the Rhythm. Take a look, learn why you should organize for time and not volume, scale, batches, size. The future clearly isn't time orientation. It is in organizational rhythm and flow, and we must learn to organize. And I hope you got a little bit of inspiration about how to do this with available literature that you might study. Thanks for listening. Please post some feedback or comment and share with me what you thought of this video. See you next time at Work the System.